Breathing. You're here to find your voice, and we're here today with Arthur Sweetman, talking about Firebase functions, NodeJS APIs, and trying to get all that data into our studio. Arthur, welcome to the show. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you, that way Arthur can see it. Using Google Meet, because we tried using whatever it's called, Zoom, and it did not work well for us. So we've migrated away. Zoom, if you're watching this, please build better software. Get on par with Google. We tried shifting over to you, and it was just incredibly frustrating. LS, okay, CD projects. We are making this for Alexa for Musicians. So I believe that's called Interactive Album. And now we want to be in the Cloud Functions folder. Functions are what we care about, so let's see what branch we're on. Get status. We are on logo upload branch. I'm not sure if that's the branch I want to be on, so now I go over to GitLab in the repository. Now, Arthur, do you already have VS Code installed?
What installed?
VS Code.
VS Code. No, I do not.
Okay, while I'm doing this, why don't you install VS Code? It'll look like this. It's a little blue icon like I have over here on the side. That way we can do pair programming. It'll be right here, code.visualstudio.com. You just download this. It's entirely free. It's a code editor. So
okay, is it
program.
Guessing I use the user installer, right?
Do you see what I'm looking at?
Yeah, I click download.
Okay. So now I go to Musician AI Cloud Functions. I'm going to go off of master and split off a different branch because it doesn't look like either of the branches I'm on is here. So. Now we'll check out a new branch, suites / Arthur APIs. I forgot to do git checkout -b. -b declares it as a new branch. We're now on a new branch. So now I can open up my code editor. Additionally, I want to open up another code editor with the project that we're going to mimic. Samir told me that we want to follow Chuck's brain in terms of following the layout for these functions to reduce our cold start times, to have more optimized functions. So now I'm going to cd into functions for Chuck, and now code / will open that up in VS Code as well. So to get started, I want to just set up the basic overall skeleton and then see that it works. And then from there we can make it more detailed, because Samir has a specific structure. I want to make sure we get that structure right. Once we get the structure right, then we can continue moving. So he wanted me to do get data, I believe. I'm going to, where did I record that? I recorded that in Slack. So going back to the source of truth, seeking first to understand, should be in the Arthur and Samir channel. Remember to follow data retrieval.js. So let's find where control F data I don't see it here. Are we inside of Chuck's brain? And am I in the right repo in Chuck's brain? Those are the two questions. Git status, git checkout Samir / launch or something. Let's run git fetch. Git fetch gives me all the extra branches, and it looks like there are some extra branches. We now have Samir delete and Samir website. I don't know which one's the most up-to-date branch, so I'm coming back over here. Chuck, not Chuck, maybe manufactured housing data. Let's check out the branches we've got. Samir website was updated 2 hours ago, so it looks like we're working off of a website branch. I don't know why we're working off of a website branch. That was a previous milestone. I'll check in with Samir about that later, but it looks like Samir website is what we want. So we'll get check out Samir website. Now let's see if our code is updated with what we wanted. Control F data I still don't see data retrieval. Samir told me to go. Data retrieval.js from Chuck's Brain Cloud Functions. So I'm inside of Cloud Functions. I'm inside of index.js. And there should be retrieval. Here's retrieval. Database retrieval, not data retrieval. Okay, so where's retrieval at? I'm going to copy this line. And I'm going to put this over in our code base on Alexa for Musicians. And not in smappy.py. Index.js is where all of our functions start. This is the landing page across all Google Cloud functions or Firebase functions. Index.js is where you always get started.
Okay.
So now I'm going to define a new comment, and this comment will be for data science API endpoints. First one will be data retrieval, database retrieval. Save that, switch back over to the code base Samir's working in, and now let's see where retrieval is used and try to copy the applications that we need. It looks like it's just right here. We're just exporting retrieve. Functions run with runtime ops. It's an HTTPS trigger on request for retrieval. So we will also export this. And honestly, I'm just going to put this with my sales endpoints because it's one line. I don't know if we have runtime ops defined, so I'm going to check over here to see where runtime ops is defined by control clicking. We can see runtime options is defined over here, so we will define those as well. Because it's in its own comment, I want it defined before it's used, so I've put it up here. Now we have retrieval, which is referencing a file that as of this moment does not exist. So I need to make sure to create this file before using it. .app, I'm sure that will be inside of the file. Functions is defined up top, so that's already defined. Runs with runtime ops is defined right here. HTTPS is defined by Firebase function, and retrieval is defined right here. So we've defined everything we need now in here. Next step will be to create the file that we're referencing. So inside of the API folder, we want to create a new file called database retrieval. How are you doing on downloading VS Code?
It's downloaded.
Okay, so when you open it, have you installed LiveShare yet? Or have you been able to open VS Code?
VS Code is open right now.
Cool. So the next thing I'd like you to do is to look up LiveShare VS Code. And then it should show you what is LiveShare. Why LiveShare? Okay, this is not the one I want. I'm looking for something that actually tells me how to use it. Install VS Code, LiveShare extension, wait for the extension to finish download, then reload VS Code when prompted. Control P. Okay, so you'll install it, hit Control P, and then you'll copy this in there, and that should be how you install the VS Code LiveShare extension. Your end goal is to have this little button down at the bottom that says LiveShare.
To get the, okay.
The goal is to have you inside of this code base with me because you are the one that's supposed to be learning, and right now I feel like I'm doing a lot of the engineering on your project. So I want you in the code base, that way you can see and follow along with what I'm doing so that you can eventually do this yourself without me having to set aside time to have a meeting.
Right.
So you're on LiveShare. I'm going to continue flowing through this. We need to define the file. Defining database retrieval.js. Database retrieval.js. Now we have this new file, but what should the contents be? We will reflect on the other original one, and I'm just for now going to copy everything, and now I paste it, and here are all of the endpoints for all counties. Get region averages, get state averages, get county averages, get county site type, warm up, all of these endpoints. So we'll leave warm up. The rest of these won't really matter. And these also don't matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send a response of 200 and hello world for all of these, just to make sure that we're not referencing anything undefined.
Okay.
Do you understand what a response is in an API?
And then what a response in an API is?
Yes.
Kind of, not really.
Do you know what an API is?
Yeah.
What does API stand for?
I don't know what it stands for.
What does an API do?
It provides people like you and me. It lets two programming things. It lets like us retrieve data from another program.
Yes. API, great work. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So it gives developers, exactly like you said, you and I, an interface, a well-defined, documented interface to be able to interact with a black box, a software that you don't need to know what's going on behind the sscenes.
Yeah.
So right
now, I got live share.
What's that?
I got live share.
Excellent. Cool. So now I'm going to start a live share. I'm going to sign in with GitHub because I guess I'm not signed in for some reason. And now my live share is up, so I should be able to hit live share here. Stop. Okay. I guess I wasn't patient enough. Signing in, starting collaboration session. Alright, so we now have, I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to paste it inside of our chat.
Okay.
So you just click on that link and then it should drop you into my code that I'm literally working on right now on my computer, and you can edit it in real time. Just like a Google Doc.
Sweet.
Okay, so I've defined all these with status code 200. I'm also going to delete this and do the same thing because I don't want it. I just want the skeleton. I don't care about any of the content. I just want to make sure that Samir's his structure works. Mm-hmm. And then once we verify that the structure works, we'll do the other things. All right, so now I don't know how I deploy this. I mean, I guess I deploy all counties. Let's see what happens if I try deploying all counties. We're inside of here, ls. We want to go inside of functions, not necessarily, but that's what I'm going to do. Firebase deploy -- only functions : the name of the function, all counties. So let's see if it recognizes this as a function, or if it says what, that doesn't exist. My assumption is that that's going to say what, that doesn't exist, but Samir might know something I don't know.
Okay. I believe I'm in.
Find module /API key. What's your question?
I believe I'm in.
Okay, so you see my code?
Yeah.
Are you locked with me when I scroll? Does your screen scroll?
No.
Cool.
But there's only 31 lines of code, so that might be.
When I come over here, do you move over?
No, yep, that I switched pages.
Yeah, so if you click the pin up top, that will either have you follow me or unfollow me. So if you're fine following me, that's good. If you want to jump around, click the pin in the top.
Cool.
Okay, cannot find API key. Let's see. Okay, so there's a module API key that Samir has defined that I am not using right now. I think that's it. let's see what API key is over here. How do I do this so that I don't share this info on the live stream? I pull it up over on my tower. Two screens would be helpful. I don't have a second screen set up, so I'm going to go onto my desktop, which is a totally separate computer.
Okay.
Alright, what is inside of API key? Alright, so it looks like all that API key.js is doing is checking if we have a valid API key. And we will want that at some point, but right now I'm trying to move with speed. So API key helpers we don't need. I'm going to save that. Let's try it again. It'll probably say that I'm missing something else. Hopefully it doesn't. We don't have any of these, so these all need to get deleted. I hope I'm in the right project here. I think I'm actually deleting these all from the wrong place. Let's go back to the right project. Now we delete API key. Now we save. Now we should be good. Trying this again. And my node tools are out of date, so once that's done, I'm going to update my node tools. We're specified but do not match any functions. Okay, so it says all counties does not exist. Whoa. Copying this line, pasting it so that I can update my Firebase tools. Alright, so those are all the things currently in the project, and it's telling me that the following filters were specified but do not match any functions. All counties is not a function, so maybe how do I deploy this, I guess, is my next question. I want to call Samir, but it looks like I can just do retrieve, and maybe retrieve will get them all. So this is the next thing that I'm going to do. Instead of all counties, we're going to paste retrieve. Interesting structure, Samir. Cool. So now it is actually saying that there's a retrieve. It's about to get added to Firebase. I'm going to start verifying by heading over to Firebase functions to make sure. So you should start thinking of what API endpoints you would like to import into your R code. Because database retrieval, each of these can do different pieces of work. So in this case, it's defined for manufactured housing data, which is all built around real estate and housing data. But each of these will return data. So this endpoint returns all of the counties. This one returns region averages. This one returns state averages. So for you, what is the data that you would like to be pulling into your R code? And how can we define that into some modules or API endpoints to get that data in a way that makes sense, is fast, and is useful? Because you could just have one endpoint and it retrieves everything that you need, but that's going to be slow because it'll need to do a lot of data. Or you can have a tiny endpoint for each and everything, and then you're going to be making a lot of API calls, and that'll slow down your side in terms of a lot of calls. Each call will take a specific amount of time. So this is the design stage, which is very important because how you design will be how you engineer. So thinking of how you want to design these API endpoints is important.
So those are just examples, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're going to change these. And now we'll go to database and functions. I'm sorry, not database. I wanted to go into functions. And here we should see retrieve, and we don't, which means that it's still getting added. Well, there's also 35 functions. There's retrieve. Okay, so there's retrieve, which means that it has already added it, but we have not gotten that response yet from our command line. So we'll just be patient. And then as soon as it's ready, so another thing that you'll need to install is Postman. Do you have Postman installed yet?
Nope.
Okay, so Postman is the everybody uses Postman for API testing. It's like an industry standard. So you'll want to download Postman to be able to start testing your API endpoints before you plug it into your R code.
Okay. This is a website, or a software.
Postman is software that you will need to download. If you search the word Postman in a Google tab,
Yeah.
let's see what the first result is. A collaborative platform for API development.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you download it from here. Product. Oh, or download in the top right.
Yeah. Found that.
Alright, so our retrieve function is now deployed. I'm going to try to use it inside of Postman. And I use it inside of Postman by creating a new thing. We want it to be a post, because everything with Firebase function, or everything that we're building with Firebase functions, will be a post. The URL is found inside of this Firebase function, so I put the request URL there. And I'm just going to send this off and see what it returns. Let's just hit it, see what we get. Error, cannot post. Alright, let's try get. Error, cannot get. Alright, so I'm going to go back to post, and now I'm going to follow more of the naming convention that we have here in the code base, which is /all counties. /all counties. If I send here, we get back hello world. Just like what we have here. The same should be for get region averages. If I hit this, we should now be able to get, again, hello world, the exact same thing. But if I add a number 2 to the end, we should say no post available. So for all of these endpoints we've defined, right now they all do the exact same thing of returning hello world, except I believe the warm-up app. I think warm-up actually does something else. So let's send warm-up off to show you that it is actually hitting these different endpoints, all warmed up. So we are sending a request, which is just the URL, nothing in the body, and then it returns back the data.
Okay.
So now I'm trying to think what, in the last, we have 3 minutes left, what is the single API endpoint I can give you that will be helpful? Because right now, what I've given you is you can just get the word hello world, and that's a great start, but I feel like I can teach you more to be able to, for you to be able to customize this. So what questions do you have? What would be helpful for you?
So these are setting up the API endpoints, right?
Correct.
And we really only need, if we have one API endpoint with all the data I need, I can just reach that API endpoint. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we really only need one, or we only need one or two. Like we'll probably have like two, I'm guessing.
Okay. What would
And
you
each
like
of those
to be
will send
called?
back all the. Each of those will send back like the correct data. So how do we set up the data that is going to be connected to the
First,
API
give it a
endpoints?
name. So what do you want? What would the names be?
Yeah, I'll have to look at the data that we want.
That's a great place to go to figure out the name.
Have we decided yet how we want to format the data? Whether it's going to be formatted by section or by utterance? We could say for the data set that we have right now, like that database where we have all the musicians and then data on those musicians. with like a timestamp at the end of each day and like a summary. Daily summaries, I guess, for that one, for the current one we have.
Get daily summary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think even better, get daily musician summary so that we know it is for a musician. I think it was good that you said daily, because that specifies that we're grabbing one single day. Musician specifies that the data is relevant to one single musician. I'm not sure if summary is helpful. Get daily musician data. I think data might be better than summary because we're returning. How does that look to you?
That looks good.
Okay. Timer goes off. Hey Google, stop. Get daily musician data. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to figure out is, so for daily musician data, what information will need to be passed into our API endpoint for us to be able to accurately get that? And do you have any ideas of that?
What information needs to be passed to the API endpoint?
Correct. So over here you can see that we get, for all counties, we need information like a state. That way we know what state to look up. And we also need an API key. And we need the API key to verify that the API key is valid and that they can make that call. If the API key is valid, then we grab the state that they gave us and we will look up and we'll query the database using that state. So yours, you don't. What do you think the individual things will be that you'll need to get in order to get a daily musician data?
Musician.
Yes, we will need that. That was where I was hoping you would go. So I'm going to copy this. Great thinking. So now we'll call this musician equals request.body.musician or query from musician. And if it's nothing, then it's null. Once we do that, we'll want to make a check to say, hey, if not state, we'll return that. So for this over here, we'll say if not musician, return missing musician. Hello world, here is your daily musician data. And now we will deploy this again. This will be us wrapping up for this morning. And we can come back to fill this out if you need more help, or otherwise I will push this code up and you can continue to expand this API endpoint in the rest of your day.
Okay.
I like this method more. I see why Samir's using it. This is really clever. This is really clever. Using Express instead of Firebase routing. Alright, we have deployed. Coming back over here, I'm going to try hitting the musician endpoint. Now, we don't have a body right now, which means that when I hit this, it's going to reply no musician, and we need that, missing musician. So now we need to pass in a musician. Go to body, raw, JSON. Start a JSON off with your curly braces, and now we just need a musician. I believe they want it in quotes, musician. And then we give it a value of random. Doesn't matter right now because there's no logic. But once we send that, now it should reply hello world. Hello world, here's your daily musician data. Hello world, here's your daily musician data. So if we don't pass in a musician, if no musician, then we respond with a 412 versus a 200. So you see right now we got a 200. That means it's good. If we send it without a musician and we send it, then we get a 412 precondition failed. And if you're curious of what those numbers mean and how we picked it, HTTP response codes. HTTP has been around for decades at this point. and they all have a different meaning. And when we're building APIs, we just you build around that. And there's a really easy flow chart that we like to use because flow charts make everything easier. There's a lot of good ones. Yeah, so is there a problem with the request? That was why we did the 400, because there was a problem with me requesting the data. I did not include a musician, so I returned a 400. Now, am I implementing a web server? The answer is, I guess the difference between 100 and 200 and 300 are different. 200 generally means success. So we use a lot of 200s. Usually we'll see a lot of 200s and 400s. 200 means everything went right. 400 means the user that's requesting information did something wrong. And a 500 means that our server crashed and our server did something wrong. Okay. So next step, I'm going to push this code up, get status. We are on the branch suites/Arthur APIs, get add index.js, and then we also want to get add API, database retrieval, get commit -m. I initialize API endpoints for data science quest music by the numbers. Git push origin suites Arthur APIs. Alright, so you can now pull down this branch from our GitLab code and you can have this locally on your computer. Next steps for you can include either upgrading this API, testing the API using Postman, or going straight into your RStudio and trying to use one of these API endpoints inside of RStudio.
Okay, so right now, is that API endpoint linked with the data?
The data.
Like all the data in Firebase that we have right now?
Right now, this API endpoint will check if you've included a musician name. If you have not included a musician name, it will reply missing musician. And if you have included a musician name, it will reply hello world, here's your daily musician data. It does not send any data. All that it does is reply with these hard-coded strings.
Okay, so if I wanted to return the data, we would include that in this body text?
Yes. Yeah. If we check over here in Samir's code, here's how he does it. So he gets a query, and then he appends it to a county set, and then he formats the result, and then he returns the result as an object.
Okay.
So you can return a variable that contains data. You can return a variable that contains data. You can return a hard-coded string. I have a feeling at the end of this, you're not going to be returning a hard-coded string like I am, but you're going to be returning an actual data. Yeah. So if you're interested in doing stuff with database, then your next point will be await database. This will get data for you. So database is going to grab from Firebase, and then you can go into the collection of musicians.
AI.
Is it musicians -AI?
No, that's the project name. It's just musicians.
Doc. And then this would be the actual musician that's passed in. So now it's specific to the AI or to the API musician. And then we don't need a .where, we just do .get. And then we get a query. There won't be for each doc because you'll only have one doc. Doc snapshot. And then const data equals doc snapshot.data. That should be enough to get you started. Maybe data's like that. I don't remember if it needs a function bracket or not, but what you'll want to do to keep looking at this more is go to Firebase, retrieve data. And Firebase is the wrong term, Firestore. Get data with Cloud Firestore. This I'm sending to you in Slack. So here you can see what I'm doing. Docref database.collection.doc, db.collection.doc. Here we have db.collection, the collection, and then the doc, the specific document we want to pull.
Okay.
The get function then get function then, and then we have this document snapshot. And then if doc exists, you can log the document data with doc.data, and doc.data is a function. So it's actually doc.data as a function. And then what you can do is you can say return data. I'm not going to push this up. I'll let you do that. Get status, get add API, database retrieval, get commit -m, I add initial Firestore call with returning data via API. Changes need to be deployed by Arthur using Firebase deploy -- only functions retrieval, or whatever it's formatted. I don't remember what the actual name is. That is the base call that you'll do. Git commit, git push origin suites Arthur APIs. You now have that code up in the repository. What else you need?
So I'll probably be looking at Samir's code a lot. So where's his code located?
His is in one of our clients' repositories, and I don't know if we want to give you access to that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it would be better if you asked targeted questions in the Slack channel, and then we can answer them there.
Sounds good.
What else?